What I want you to notice is that the challenge, that objection that people give about the exclusive truth claims of Christianity, that's not a recent challenge. This isn't something that just happened because we're American Westerners. Our culture is a pluralistic culture, but our culture is no more pluralistic than that culture was. The first century culture was just as pluralistic as this one. And the reason that they got in trouble, again, isn't because they believed privately that Jesus was their personal Lord and Savior. The reason they got in trouble is because they preached it publicly and they were trying to persuade people to trust in Jesus because there is no other name under heaven by which man can be saved. It was that public persuasion that got them in trouble, and the same thing's true today. Our culture is fine if you'll just believe in Jesus and keep it to yourself, but if you try to weave it into your public life, if you try to convince other people of it, if you try to tell anyone else that their way of thinking about God is wrong, that's where you get yourself in trouble. And so how do we, as Christian people, honestly hold this claim that has been given to us from Jesus and has been held by Christians throughout every century since the resurrection of Jesus from the dead? How do we hold that view in our culture today? What are some of the objections? Well, you've heard them. The most common one maybe is if people would say, if you think that Jesus is the only way to heaven, you got to be the most arrogant person I've ever met. Anyone ever heard that one? A few of you? A lot of people won't call you arrogant to your face. In fact, I've never been called that to my face, but that's kind of what they're thinking. Their thinking is, you think you're intellectually superior to anybody else, that you somehow know things that no one else knows. And is that what Peter and John are saying? I don't think that's what they're saying. For one, the text goes out of its way to point out that Peter and John are not the sharpest crayons in the box, which I find funny because Luke is a friend of Peter and John. Luke is the one writing this letter. And Luke was a doctor. He was a smart guy, but as he's writing about his friends Peter and John, he's like, yeah, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. They're kind of uneducated men. And the religious leaders see that. And so it's not as if Peter and John were saying, we're smarter than everyone else. It's not as if they're saying we've figured out a philosophy that no one else could figure it out. All they're saying is we saw something. You killed the Messiah, and the reason we believe he's the Messiah isn't because we're smarter than you. You got more degrees than a thermometer. We couldn't hold it against you in a debate. The only reason we believe that Jesus is the Messiah is because 3 days later God raised him from the dead and he showed up to us. We saw him with our own eyes, and that's why we cannot help but speak what we've seen and heard. It has nothing to do with moral or intellectual superiority. It has everything to do with eyewitness testimony, and the same is true today.